That'll do.
It's on auto white levels.
Alright. Alright, good evening everyone. Anyone joining me? If anyone's coming back from having participated in the last in part 1. So we're continuing on with making our happy little snowman. He is a pattern of my own design. So we're working through creating the big boy snowman. Where we left off last time, we'd done all the increases, so this is for the bottom of the snowman. I'm doing it in a different yarn to what this guy is in, just to make it a bit easier to see the stitches, a bit easier to show you how to make him. So we've done all the increases for the bottom, and we've done the main body, so we've worked up in 8 rows. So I left it last time having done 4 rows, and I said I'd do the remaining 4 rows of just single crochet using US terminology, in 1 single crochet in every stitch. UK terminology, that's a double crochet. So it was no increasing, no decreasing, it was just working 1 crochet in each stitch for 8 rows. So I finished off the 8 rows off stream, just to make, so we're not spending a lot of time on stream just doing basic crochet stitches. So that's taken us to the sort of the top of the widest point of the first ball. Now we're going to start decreasing into the neck. So I'll just move him to one side. So we'll keep him on screen for anyone that wants to see what we're doing and to see his happy little face. So I'll just bring my yarn over. So like last time, we're using the 5mm hook. Don't know if that's, there we go. Yep, 5mm hook, or the H hook if you're in the US. I'm just going to move my stitch marker. Oh, sorry. Nope, that's fine. What I was going to do was to show you. So I've kept my stitch marker in, which was at the beginning stitch of just the straight rows. So after we'd finished all the increases, I was going to show you how you can easily count how many rows you've done, instead of having to have like a counter off to the side or pen and paper and a note going, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just keeping track that way. So an easier way I find is if you keep your stitch marker in at the first stitch of just the straight rows, to count them you sort of go up 1 and over, and that's the end of the first row. So it's sort of a diagonal from the stitch marker, so you want to count that stitch, and then it's just counting up, and it goes into a slight diagonal. You're just counting off of it, so that's the end of the first row. So go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The 8 looks a bit funny because it is, although it's a completed stitch, it's kind of harder to tell where it is because you don't have the stitch next to it sort of pulling it into the right tension and the right shape. But if we move diagonal from where the stitch marker is and then just count up the stitches on a slight diagonal up to where our hook is positioned, then we've got 8 rows there, so we've done what we needed. Just as sort of a recap, we did 8 rows because we did 8 rows of increases on the bottom of the globe. Okay. Just set my hook back up. Now, I've been crocheting all day, pretty much. So gotta be honest, my finger's a bit sore from the yarn. So I'm using these yarn guides, which I absolutely recommend getting. I'm not sponsored by this, but these are Clover yarn guides. And there's other brands you can get them, but I find them so nice. It keeps the yarn sort of in the right position, and it also saves my finger from, I have quite tight tension when it comes to crochet, so I quite often cut into my finger from the yarn. Crochet hazard. I'm just going to remove that initial stitch marker because I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to start my first stitch of my first decrease row. It's just single crochet, and I'm just going to place my stitch marker in that stitch just so I know when I've reached the end of the row. Alright, so the first row of decreases, we're going to do an invisible decrease, and I'll show you how to do that. But the first row of decreases is the opposite of the last row of increases. So in the last row of increases we did 6 single crochets and then 2 single crochets in the 7th stitch. Well, what we're going to do for the decreases, we're going to do 6 single crochets in the next 6 stitches, and then we're going to do an invisible decrease in the next 2 stitches after that. And I'll show you what I mean. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and now an invisible decrease, an ordinary decrease, and I'll show you what the difference is and why I prefer the invisible decrease. An ordinary decrease, you just put your hook through the stitch, grab your yarn through, and then don't complete the single crochet, we're just continuing. We then put our hook through the next stitch and grab the yarn and pull through, which would leave us with 3 loops on the hook, but we've hooked loops through the next 2 stitches. And then you'd grab your yarn through and you'd pull it through all 3 loops. And that's a standard decrease, and it sort of is in US terminology, it's a half double crochet. In UK terminology, it's a half treble crochet. But it does make it look different from the stitches next to it. You can see, I'm not sure how easy it is to see at the moment, but it is a bit bulkier than the other stitches, so I find it's a lot easier to spot, and just doesn't look as nice personally. So I'm just going to undo that back to the last single crochet of the 6 stitches we've already done. Excuse me. Alright, so an invisible decrease is we're just going to put our hook through the front loop of the next stitch. So an ordinary stitch has sort of, it's like a V. So when you put your hook through a normal stitch, you've got the 2 sides to the V. You've got the front loop and the back loop, and there's that gap in the middle. So we just want to go through that front loop, so we're bringing our hook up through that gap in the middle, and we're leaving that back loop under the hook. So that just gives us our working loop and the front loop of the next stitch. Now we're not going to grab the yarn, we're going to bring our hook back around to the front and go through the front loop of the next stitch, and that does give us 3 stitches. sorry, 3 loops on the hook. So now we're going to grab our yarn and we're going to pull it through those 2 front loops. So that leaves us with 2 loops on the hook. Then we're going to grab our yarn again and complete the single crochet. So if I just do the next single crochet in the pattern, you can see that that decrease blends in a lot better. It still is a bit, it covers up the gap that you sort of see in the other stitches next to it, just because of the type of yarn it is. So it is slightly bulkier in that sense, but it won't create an actual bulge in the finished globe, as you would see with the standard decrease. So we've done that. There's now 6 single stitches and an invisible decrease. We're going to repeat that another 5 times. So much like with the increases, where you increase by 6 in each row because you started with 6, you're going to decrease by 6 stitches each row as well. So I've already done one. Just going to go round till we hit the stitch marker. So 6 single crochets in the next, a single crochet in the next 6 stitches, and then an invisible decrease. I've already lost count. It's a good start. 6. There we go. Can't count and talk. An invisible decrease. Stitches. You probably heard that can opening in the background from the lovely Corvus. Invisible decrease. Oops. You right there? Sorry, my dog's come to say hello. You good? Took her out for a walk in the rain, and she's not overly happy with me. I forgot to put a raincoat on, so she and I both got a little drenched. It wasn't raining when we left for the walk. It did pour on us about 5 minutes into the walk. I hadn't even gotten like 200 meters from my house yet. Right, so at the end of the first decrease row, and you can already sort of see how that's pulling that shape now into a ball. rather than just a bowl, I guess. So just take out that stitch marker. So the next row is, because we're now down 6 stitches, we're going to do a single crochet in the next 5 stitches. Just put my stitch marker back in on that first stitch. Right, once we've done the 5, we're going to do an invisible decrease. So I'm hoping with part 2 that we'll get to the point where we've finished the body of the snowman tonight. And then we'll do part 3 next week, same time. And part 3 we'll do the accessories, which won't take all that long, and we'll be able to complete the look then, hopefully. At the end of these 3 parts, I will be publishing a written pattern for the Happy Little Snowman, if anyone would prefer to do that over watching the video. But I'll be able to refer back to these videos for training guides on how to do particular things, such as my alternate magic circle or an invisible decrease. So I didn't say, and I should have said, so much like with the first decrease round, it's just repeat the decrease 6 times throughout the row. So 5 single crochets in the next 5 stitches, so 1 single crochet per the next 5 stitches, and then a invisible decrease, and just repeat that 6 times throughout the row. A bit tangled here. Yeah. There we go, that's the end of the row. So we're not closing this portion, this bottom globe up, So the body's done all in one piece, so we're only decreasing to a point, and then we'll be increasing again to form the top globe for the head. So the next decrease row is just, every decrease row you just remove one additional stitch before the invisible decrease. So this row we're doing a single crochet in the next 4 stitches and then an invisible decrease, and repeat that another 5 times till the end of the row. So I said in the last stream as well, if you would like to order a snowman, I'm accepting orders up until the end of November for the big boy snowman. He is £15 to order. All orders of the big boy Happy Little Snowman will be posted out end of November, so you'll receive them in time for Christmas, but I'm not posting any out earlier than that, just so that I can keep track of who has ordered and what gets shipped, so I'm not missing anyone or leaving anyone out or behind. So we're only going to be doing one more decrease row. One second. So the final decrease row of that first globe, and you can really see how that's starting, the decreases are starting to pull the sides round to make a snowball. So the final decrease round is a single crochet in the next 3 stitches. And I'll just pop my stitch marker back in there. And then an invisible decrease. and then just repeat. A single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and then an invisible decrease. And then to make it a bit easier on us, we're going to stuff the bottom half of the snowman a little bit before moving on too much with the increase. So we'll do the first increase row of the top half of the snowman, but we'll stuff the bottom half a little bit because it's just easier to stuff him now rather than trying to shove stuffing all the way down once we complete the rest of the body. But it's also personal preference. If you would prefer to wait until you have completed the top half of the snowman before stuffing the rest of him, you can absolutely do that. It is just personal preference on that. Lost count again. Sorry, bear with me. There we go. Nuggets. Oh, I said that, my tummy just grumbled. Looking forward to it. We're getting chicken nuggets. No, I can't wait.
What was that?
Hmm?
What'd you say?
Did you not hear me?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I said I'm definitely looking forward to the chicken nuggets arriving because my tummy just grumbled as soon as I said nuggets.
Apparently this person has the slowest drive.
So that's the finish of the bottom half of the snowman. So he's a bit out of shape at the moment, but that will once we stuff him, that will take a much better form. So we'll do the first increase row of the top half. So it's pretty much just the opposite again. We're not increasing. So we decreased 4 rows from that main part of the body, but we're only going to increase 3 rows, just to make the head, you know, a little bit smaller than the bottom half. So to increase now, we're going to do a single crochet in the next 3 stitches. Pop my stitch marker back in. I always forget to put him in at probably a more appropriate time. And then we're going to do 2 single crochets in the 4th stitch. And then just repeat. So single crochet in the next 3 stitches. And then 2 single crochets in the 4th stitch. And then just repeat the same pattern round to the end of the row.
One person detected in the driveway.
Our security system there. On our final set of the increase row for the head. So single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and then 2 single crochets in that last stitch of the row. Right. Now, for me personally, I'm going to partially stuff the bottom of the snowman. I just find that easier to work with. So I'm just using soft toy filling, 100% polyester. This is from Hobbycraft, not sponsored by Hobbycraft, but just any sort of soft toy filling is fine. If you're just making it for decoration, really pillow stuffing, toy stuffing, cotton balls, it's up to you. Partial stuff. All right, perfect. Should have said carrying on from last time. If anyone hasn't watched part 1 yet, I'm making this snowman with glamorous yarn from B&M stores. It's only a £3 skein, and they've got a lot of different colours. They've got a white, and what I love about this yarn, it's just got that little shimmer to it. It's got a little bit of metallic thread going through it. I've also used it for the scarf in this snowman, so they've got a red and a light gold. They also have a darker gold and 2 tones of silver, so they've got a light silver and a dark silver. And it's such a Christmassy yarn to me. It just reminds me of Christmas, just that little shimmer. So I thought I'd do a snowman with this yarn as well. For this snowman, I used a chenille yarn. It's the King Cole Yummy yarn, which is a chunky yarn. It's just lovely and soft. It's great for toys, and this one is for my daughter. The black yarn for the embroidery and for the hat, and for the orange yarn for the nose, is Rico Designs, Rico Rumi Creative double knit yarn, and it's in black, which is shade 80, and smoky orange. I don't remember what colour code smoky orange is, but if I do, I will let you know. Right, so we're on to the second increase row of the head. So we're doing a single crochet into the next 4 stitches, and then 2 single crochets into the 5th stitch, and then just repeat. So single crochet into the next 4 stitches, and 2 single crochets into the same stitch, and I forgot to put my stitch marker in. Bear with me. When working in continuous rounds, I really do recommend using a stitch marker, just because it makes it so much easier to tell where you started, so you know where you have to finish. Yep. Single crochet into the next 4 stitches. Yarn got caught on my rings. Sorry, I'm taking my work out of view there. Ooh! Just trying to move my chair and bump the whole desk. Oh. Just counting forward, I seem to have miscounted somewhere, so I'm just going to have to do a slight adjustment. Oh no, I've counted correctly, it's fine. So last repeat, single crochet in the next 4 stitches, and 2 single crochets in the last stitch. Right. Bear with me a moment before we start the next row. Alrighty. So as the last increase row of the head, we're going to increase by doing the single crochet in the next 5 stitches. 2, just pop my stitch marker back in. Three, 4, 5, and then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. And just repeat round. Three, 4. So last repeat, single crochet and then 5 stitches and 2 single crochets in that last stitch. Really hope you can't hear my stomach. I'm so hungry. Right, so that's all the increases for the head. So now we're going to work those forming rows, just the rows that work just straight up, a single crochet in every stitch, no increasing, no decreasing. Now with the body we did 8 of those forming rows because we did 8 rows of increases. So for the head we need to sort of count how many rows we would have increased if we'd started as like a full ball. So we've only had 3 rows of increases there, but we did have 8 down here, but we know we decreased 4 to get to the neck. So we need to do 7 rows of a single crochet in every stitch. So because we've increased by 1 less than what we decreased by from the bottom ball, which was an 8 row forming, we only need to do 1 less forming row on the head, so it's only 7. Let's put my hook back in there. I'll just do the first stitch of the forming rows. I'm going to do the first 2. get that tension nice and tight on that first stitch. And then I'm just going to place my stitch marker. Now the way I was placing my stitch markers before, you may have seen, I was placing them under the stitch of sorry, bear with me a moment. Sorry about that. So with my stitch marker, I'd normally been going under the stitch. For this one, just so I can mark out the first stitch and not have to worry about moving it when I get back around to it, I'm just going to hook it through the post. Let's see if I can make this a bit clearer. Stretch the marker out a little bit. Just going to place it under the post of that first stitch, and the post is the connector to the row underneath it. So I can tell that that's still connected to that first stitch, but it just sort of keeps the stitch marker out of the way while I crochet in the rounds. Right, sorry about that. So, done 2 stitches of the forming rows for the head. You can see my lovely husband in the background, Corvus. So, like I said, we're just going to do 7 rounds of these forming rows. So we're just going to work a single crochet in every stitch. Now's the time when I wish I could sort of speed this up and sort of cut away and or have one that I prepared earlier. So my lovely husband is delivering my dinner to me. Thank you. So I'm using 2 threads on this one to make it a bit thicker. So that's exactly right. So OG Walt had just asked, for anyone that can't see the chat, why do I use 2 threads? Is it to make everything a little thicker with what you have available? And that's exactly correct. So I normally use this chunky chenille yarn, which I don't have anywhere, so I don't double up on that, but because I wanted to use something that makes it a bit easier to see the stitches so I can explain things for this tutorial rather than so the chenille yarn sort of like blends in a little bit too much, so I'm doubling up on this just so to make the stitches a bit bigger, to make the item a bit bigger, just in the hopes that it makes it a bit easier to see on stream. So it is a good trick if you need to, if you have a pattern for something that when you use a like a double knit yarn, or like a 4-ply even, so when it's very thin yarn, I've got a couple examples here actually I can sort of show. So this is a 4-ply, and you can see it's a very thin strand. And then this is a sort of a weird yarn. It's not quite a double knit and it's not quite a 4-ply. It's sort of in between the two. It's a rope yarn. So this, the black may be a bit hard to see. This is a double knit, so it's ever so slightly thicker than the 4-ply. And then I've got a chunky yarn here, which obviously is a lot thicker than the other yarns. You've got all your different yarn weights, which are your yarn thickness, which sort of determines how many strands of yarn are in the overall ball. And if you only have a or say you're trying to make something, even a piece of clothing, that you've got a yarn that you really like the look of, but it's not the right thickness for the gauge of the pattern. If it's thinner than the gauge of the pattern, you can double up on the yarn and try and work the gauge that way. So say you have a pattern that calls for an Aran weight yarn, and you've only got double knit, but you really like the double knit. Well, if you double up on the double knit strands, that actually creates an Aran yarn thickness, and then it goes up in there. If you double up on the Aran yarn, you get a chunky. If you double up on a chunky, you get a super chunky. Now that terminology all changes depending on if you're in the UK or the US, so do sort of watch out for that. I think I'm not sure what an Aran is called in US terminology, but I know like chunkies for us here are, I think, bulky in the US and super bulky. And in Australia, like a double knit is an 8-ply, I think, or something. So there are a lot of conversion charts you can find online, but that is something to just bear in mind. Obviously I live in the UK, so I do generally work with UK terminology, but funnily enough I do use US terminology when describing the crochet stitches, mainly because I find that the US terminology makes more sense than the UK terminology, but it did throw me off something foul when I first started crocheting, that there was different terminology depending on where you lived. And considering I grew up internationally, you would think that I, of all people, would know that there would be different terminologies depending on where you live. I'm of German and Australian descent, yet I grew up in Australia and now live in the UK. So So that's the end of the first round of the forming rows. So we're just going to keep going. There's no need to stop. It's just keep going round until you finish the 7 rows. So you say you're a crochet newbie or G-Wold. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. How long have you been crocheting for? I mean, yes, that's exactly. So OJ said that the different tool thickness will do a lot as well. Making something that's firm would be impossible with a thin string and a big hook. That's exactly right. You do need to match your hook size to your work, So a thin 4-ply yarn, you're probably looking at anywhere between a 3mm and a 4mm hook. I'm currently using a 5mm hook for these doubled strands, and I also use the 5mm for the chenille yarn, and that's to sort of eliminate any gaps. With amigurumi, where you're making things like this snowman or animal designs, it's always best to go with a slightly smaller hook, just so you eliminate those holes between the stitches and it stops any stuffing from escaping if you're using stuffing. But if you're making, personally, if I'm making a piece of clothing or a blanket, I'll use a slightly larger hook, and that's because I've got quite a tight tension. I pull my yarn quite tightly. People that have generally a looser tension should go for a smaller hook. So before I start anything, if I'm doing a piece of clothing, I'll always make a gauge swatch where I'll just crochet a random amount of stitches in rows, and then count how many stitches and rows create a 10 by 10 centimeter square. Made one carpet 8 years ago with a size 21 hook. Wow. No real interest in making anything else. Oh, just interested in seeing what people are capable of. That's nice as well. Kind of sad you've got no interest in making anything else, but I use crochet to manage stress and anxiety, so I kind of sing its praises now. Well, but thank you for stumbling upon me and coming to see what we're doing. It's always nice to speak with a new person. And I hope you're enjoying. Yes, as Cora says, it does make streaming a lot easier when people get involved in chat. I do try to keep conversation going as much as possible. I do try to keep talking, but you eventually run out of stories. There's only so much of my life that's interesting enough to tell to random people. So other than just repeating stories, but when you're so new to streaming, you can't really repeat just yet. People might get a bit sus. So what part of the world do you hail from, OG? Or for creating more into game design? Ooh. We do, my husband and I do a lot of gaming as well. A few hours of Super Mario Maker behind you. Oh, lovely. I do love Super Mario. I grew up with the old, the first Game Boy generation, and the Super Mario games for that. And I've got an old N64 somewhere, but we don't have the cables to hook it up to run it from our TVs. We don't have the adapter. But I like to keep it around just in case. Yeah, as Corvus has said, he does do 3D printing and electronics. He's automated our entire house. I don't know how to run the house anymore. I just run the finances behind it. But we're trying to find something, sort of a project that we can sort of put our two hobbies together. We're trying to find a way to put 3D printing and crochet together. So any ideas, we'll gladly take them. The 3D printer is an expensive hobby. The printer itself is expensive, and yes, as Corvus is saying, our 3D printer has been getting upgraded for about 8 months now. When he says getting upgraded, what he means is that the only original remaining component of the 3D printer is the frame. All the electronics have been changed, the fans have been changed, the wires have been changed, the arm rotors have been changed, the extrusion port has been changed, the base, the bed has been changed. So yeah, the only original remaining part of that is probably the Y and Z axis frames. Oh, and 3 of the 4-stepper motors. Whatever that means. Means nothing to me. I don't understand these words. Do you mind? See if we can get Doggo Cam. Nova! Hmm? She's chatting away in the background. Oops. Little ride there. Our puppy's been a bit funny. She hasn't had an accident in the house for months. Well, I say months, weeks. We've only had her 2-3 months, I think. Yeah, she's 5 months. We've had her 3 months. So she hasn't had an accident in the house since she was about just turned 3 months old. And because of the rain we've been having, she's sort of refused to go outside for more than a few seconds. So the last couple of days we've now had 3 accidents in the house.
What's the fireworks?
And the fireworks have also not helped. We've had a lot of people around us setting off fireworks, and she was seemingly doing fine with the fireworks, but I think she was outside when a couple of close by ones went off and really spooked her. So we've been having some trouble since then. So it's sort of like back at square one. I mean, not quite square one. She's not making nearly as many accidents as she did when we first brought her home. But touch wood, she doesn't revert to that stage. Yes, you and Corvus sound very similar in that sense, OG, with the PC. Everything gets upgraded as we go along. Corvus's PC does need upgrading in terms of the graphics card, mainly because he went and bought this monstrosity of a monitor, which is one of those ultra-wide monitors. I mean, it's amazing, but it's huge. And we thought that would be enough for him, but he still has another monitor on his desk. So technically, If you count the ultra wide as 2 monitors, he has 3 monitors on his desk at home, just for personal use. If anything feels inconvenient in some way, it's probably something can be created with a 3D printer. That's true, OG. That's true. We we have created a lot of things with the 3D printer that's sort of just like for example, the holder for my microphone is 3D printed. So this thing is actually oh right, I was just wondering what the clip is for, but got it, Corvus. Okay, so this is a yarn guide. I get it from, I just bought it off Amazon, but it's a Clover yarn guide. Not sponsored, but just because I have quite a tight tension and I pull my yarn quite tight, I quite often end up cutting into my finger. So I've got that yarn guide just because for a little bit of protection on myself, because at the end of the night I'll have that deep sort of rivet in my finger from where I've been pulling the yarn for so long. It gets quite uncomfortable. Yeah, and it was only like £2 off Amazon, so I just got it. Yeah, and that's true, OG. It is sort of automated. It does make crocheting a lot faster because you sort of, I also don't have to look so much. I can sort of crochet without really seeing what I'm doing because obviously the yarn is always in the same spot. How many rows have we got so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so we're going to need to do 2 more rows of the forming, and then we'll decrease the head and do the final stuffing. And that will take us up to the end of part 2 of the snowman. And we'll finish him off next week. So, OG, I'm not sure if you'd be interested, but I do also do mystery makes. So I do sort of a series, or I'm starting a series, where I will just crochet something, and if you can guess what the item is before I'm finished, you win it, if you're the first person to guess it. I also do raffles alongside them, so one person can win by guessing what the item is, and one person can win through a raffle. So I did one for Halloween, but I will be doing, I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing them once a week at the moment, but it just might be something you might be interested in keeping an eye out for, if that's something that is of interest of you. So do if that is something that you think you'd like to know about as they come up, drop me a follow. I don't stream like every day, so you won't get inundated with notifications, but I am trying to stream at least 2 times a week at the moment. One for a normal crochet along and probably one for a mystery make or just a simply crocheting chat. And of course that's not just directed to OG. If anyone else is watching that is interested in anything like that, do drop me a follow. And if anyone has any suggestions of what they'd like me to make, or any maybe crochet challenges, we'll see. Ah, fair enough. So on the last row, the ooh, Norway. It's not bad. We had been planning on doing a trip this year sometime,
That's why we haven't done that.
into Norway and Denmark and Sweden, and guess why we haven't done that? Bloody landlocked, home locked, really. We were also meant to be going back to Australia earlier this year. We our daughter turned a few more cases than we like, so we're starting to lock up again. Yeah, well, we live in Newport, Wales. So Wales went back into lockdown just over a week ago now. It was a week ago, yeah. So things had just been starting to open up. We went camping, or glamping. We were starting to do things. I was going back into the office. Corvus is working from home completely now, and then just back into lockdown. We have a 20-month-old daughter, so we'd sort of been hoping to go on a trip through Scandinavia with her, and also we were going to go back to Australia to go see family back there, but all of that went in the bin. It's all postponed off into next year, so hopefully we'll be able to do it next year. But we'll see. We got a credit balance for our flight to Australia, so we do sort of have to try and get back next year. It is my sister-in-law's wedding next year, so hopefully we can get back for that. I'd hate to miss that if we have to. Oh yeah. No, I do know that Scandinavia is not really a cheap place to visit, but we sort of prepared for that. I mean, Australia is not cheap. Australia is a very expensive place, so we're very used to like high costs of living and that sort of thing. The UK is certainly cheaper than Australia. Alright, so that finishes off the forming rows. So again, as I explained with the bottom ball, if we sort of move diagonally to the stitch up from the stitch marker, let me just move my hook, we can count how many rows we've done. So that's the end of the first row, that stitch. So we just move up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we'll be working on decreasing now and closing up the snowman, ready to stuff him. I am just going to have a quick food break. I'm so hungry. But, I'm just going to grab one chicken nugget and then we'll go. We'll keep growing. We'll keep crocheting. Crochet stops for nothing, except for a little bit of food. I really hope the microphone's not picking up that. I could mute it, obviously, but... Mukbang. Yep. Pretty much. Alrighty. So... I've got my pattern written up on my other screen, just so I can remind it. It's not the most complicated of patterns, but every now and then I just want to make sure that I'm giving the right instructions. Alright, so for the decreases, we're going to do a single crochet in the next 5 stitches. Oops. I'll pop my stitch marker back in so I know where the start of the row is. 3, 4, 5, and we're going to do that invisible decrease again. So hook through the front loop of the next stitch and then the front loop of the stitch after that. So you've got 3 loops on your hook. Grab your yarn and pull that through the first 2 loops, so the front loops of the 2 stitches. Oops, hooked on something. There we go. Nope, that didn't work. I'll try that again. Front loop, front loop. There we go. Pull through. So you've got your 2 loops, and then just finish off your single crochet. And that's your invisible decrease. So just repeat that round to the start of the row. So single crochet in the next 5 stitches, and then an invisible decrease. Oops. An invisible decrease. She is full on sulking. The puppy is full on sulking under Corvus's chair. Got a bit ahead of myself there. Caspers. We can get Caspers delivered now. But, oh, wait, I should just check. We are talking about the same Caspers, the, like, dessert shop with waffles and ice cream.
I think that's spelled with a K.
True. I think you're right. I think the Caspers I'm thinking of is spelt with a K. I'm just going to add a bit more stuffing to the bottom half of the snowman. Just so it's a lot easier to get stuffing in there at the moment. As we continue decreasing, the hole will make it harder to get stuffing down into that bottom ball. So it is good to stuff him now while you've got the nice wide opening. Yeah, and I think it's I think Caspers make, so we are talking about the right Caspers for one, and I think it's not that they single-handedly make you put on a couple of kilos, it's that they single-handedly make you put on a couple of kilos in one sitting. It's a lot of sugar, but I love it. No clue what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Alright, so you can see now once you've got the stuffing in, the form of, like I've only got stuffing in that bottom half now, but the form of the snowball just takes a much better shape now. Right, so we'll just finish off the decreases. Stitch marker. Right, so the next row, so we did a single crochet in the 5 stitches and then an invisible decrease in the last row. So this time we're going to do a single crochet in the next 4 stitches. Three, 4. I forgot to put my stitch marker in, as usual. Oops. And then we're going to do our invisible decrease. Okay. And as before, just repeat. So single crochet in the next 4 stitches. Oops. Okay. 4. And invisible decrease. mistake back there. So I only pulled back a couple of stitches. It looks like I hadn't quite dropped a loop from the previous stitch. Yep, there we go. 4, decrease, and again 1, 4, oh, you've got me thinking about Caspers now, OG. Could really go a waffle now. Still haven't eaten my my chicken nugget, but I could really go a waffle now. We can have pancakes tomorrow. Yes, you are right, Corliss. Pancakes will likely be had. I don't blame you, OG. Don't blame you. Tempting others is just as sweet as Casper's, right? So we're now going to do a single crochet in the next 3 stitches. 2, 3. And then our invisible decrease. One, 2, 3. And decrease. We are sort of testing out with this top-down camera, so I do really hope that I'm not like getting my fingers in the way too much. Obviously it's a bit difficult when I'm so used to sort of crocheting to my eye line, kind of adapting that for the camera being above the work is it's an interesting challenge. Two, three, Right. Hard time committing to, yeah, other creatives. Yeah, and that's true. You've got to find sort of what works for you anyway. Starting a new hobby makes you feel below average. Yeah, I get that. I do get that. I'm struggling quite a bit at the moment. Mental health speaking, especially with lockdown. I've recently been diagnosed with PTSD. So crochet for me, when I first started it, when I figured out that there was a difference between the UK and the US terminology, which completely changed the way I was creating something. I had been using US terminology by accident, and when I'd meant to be using UK terminology, but I didn't know there was a difference, and the item I was making looked completely wrong because of that mix up, and that annoyed me so much that I didn't do any crochet for about a year after that. And then I saw my mother-in-law crocheting, and I thought, oh, I'll give it another go. And she's taught me a lot, but she also sat next to me and sort of like encouraged me at every point. So I think if you're struggling with picking up a hobby and you don't have that sort of like personal cheerleader in the background, I can understand it's very hard to sort of keep the motivation to keep going and keep learning. I am the type, I like to learn behind closed doors because I prefer to show that I like know what I'm doing when I eventually do show someone. So that was quite a unique experience, having my mother-in-law there sort of looking over my shoulder and teaching me. Wasn't sure how I really felt about that, but yeah, I mean, it worked out well in the end, I think. But yeah, I do understand when you sort of don't you don't know what you're doing, and you are trying to learn. When you see other people do it and you see sort of like maybe how effortless they make it look, it can be discouraging. So I do get that. Crochet for me was just, it's been a bit of a lifesaver. So I have put a lot of effort into it. But again, that's me. That's not for everyone. Crochet's not for everyone. Some people prefer to knit. Some people prefer to draw. Some people prefer to, going on the extreme, jump off buildings. I'm thinking of bungee jumping there, but that's probably not right. Some people make mistakes. I'm going to read that out because that tickles me. There was a team of scientists that wanted to put trackers on turtles to see where they went when it was not breeding time. And after several months of engineering, they finally put the trackers on the turtles and saw them swim merrily away, and then realized their trackers were not waterproof. I mean, that's just profound. I think a lot of people make sort of silly mistakes like that. You get a bit blinkered, where you don't really see the bigger picture anymore. Almost like you get focused on a point of doing something to an extent where you don't think of all of the potential possibilities and potential fallouts from it. But that's good. I like that. So this decrease row, we're doing a single crochet in the next 2 stitches, so I've already done that, and then we're doing our invisible decrease, and it's just repeat that round to the stitch marker again. So 1, 2, and an invisible decrease.
No.
Ooh! My doggo is looking for attention in the background there. We she is only 5 months, so she's still learning. So there's still a lot of training going on in terms of behavior and how to act. She's a very high energy dog, so she does require a lot of exertion. Exertion?
Pause. How did I not notice you had bunny paws?
Oh, I do apologise for that. The microphone is quite loud. It's a bit... Can't really predict when she's about to bark, so I can't say anyone with headphones, watch out. Do apologise for that, OG.
Incoming.
Potential incoming bark. My husband's just given me the heads up. One, 2, and decrease. Here we go. So this decrease round, we're just doing a single crochet in the next stitch and then a decrease. So it's 1 decrease. This is where it can start to get a bit fiddly, because obviously your hole that you're working the rounds in is getting smaller, so it can get a little tight on the stitches, which can make it a little tricky to get your hook in there. This is a point where if you need to, I do recommend changing to a smaller hook for the decreases. It can make it just a bit easier to get your hook through that front loop. We're just doing this 6 times through the round. There's 1 and a decrease. You're just decreasing. At the end of this decrease round, you should have 12 stitches. And yes, that's correct. You are right, OG. It will be hidden as well. So if you do have sort of a stitch size because you've gone to a smaller hook, you won't really notice it because we will hide it with the hat eventually, obviously. So, because I haven't put my stitch marker in, I'm just going to count to make sure that I've done the right amount of decreases. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 1 more decrease. You want to have 12 stitches at the end of this. And then I just pull the loop out. I'm just going to put a stitch marker in so I don't drop that loop. We're going to finish stuffing the snowman now. Get stuffing in the head while we've still got a decent sized hole to get stuffing in. So the next round we're going to be decreasing every stitch. Yes, it is nice. Thank you, OG. Yeah, so the next round we're just going to be decreasing every stitch. So we're going to be doing 6 decreases, and that's going to make the hole quite a bit smaller. It will make it a lot harder to get your stuffing in. So I do recommend you stuff your snowman now. And then we'll be finishing him off. So I like, as a personal preference, I prefer to sort of overstuff my toys to get a really decent shape. It does make them a bit sort of firmer than some other toys might be. There are some toys I would say understuff, and that's if you, so when I make sort of floppy arm toys or comforters, I would understuff those because they're a bit nice to have, a bit softer, and you know, if you're giving them to babies, they just sort of snuggle down onto them. You don't want them to be too sort of firm. But toys like this, where you have sort of a very specific shape, I do prefer to sort of overstuff and make sure that that shape really is formed out. But that's all personal preference, so you can stuff your snowman or any of your toys really to sort of however firm you want. It's always best, I find it's easier to add small amounts of stuffing at a time and sort of move them to the areas where you want the stuffing to sit. So if any of you have come over from my part 1 of the crochet along, you'll have noticed that obviously the first part of this snowman took a lot longer than this section. That's mainly because it took me a lot of setup in the first part. Overall, when I don't have to explain things and I can just sort of have at it, the body of this snowman takes me about an hour and a half to make. So it's not the most complicated of patterns. It is quite a nice easy pattern. And I think it's a nice easy pattern if you are learning how to crochet amigurumi, because it sort of does everything. It's got your increases, your decreases, teaches you how to make sort of a circle or a ball in crochet. I'm just going to overstuff the head slightly just because we've still got another row to do. So I don't want to leave a gap at the top. Alrighty, so that's sort of the final shape we're going to be dealing with. So that's fairly close. He's obviously a bit smaller than my big boy because it is, even though I've doubled up on the yarn, it is a thinner yarn make to the chenille, because this is about roughly doubled up. It's about an Aran thickness of yarn, whereas the King Cole Yummy is chunky. So yeah, there is a size difference, but he's done with stuffing. So we'll just finish off that last decrease row, and then I'll show you how we gather the stitches and do a final tie off, and that will bring us to the end of this stream. Where are we? So the last row of decreases is just going to be decreasing every row. Now this can get a little tricky because we are now, with it being stuffed, the stitches are pulled tightly, the hole is a lot smaller, so where ordinarily you'd sort of push your hook in under the loop, and for the first one you may find that that's fairly easy to do. You can still push your hook through the front loops of the next two stitches. If you find you're starting to struggle with that, I like to sort of take the hook end and sort of grab the loop and pull up and come up through the center of the loop that way, rather than trying to push the head of the hook through, using the hook to actually bring up the front loops, and get your hook in that way. I'm just going to do this 6 times. So I'll have 6 stitches. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I know I bring the work out of frame there. I do apologise for that. Just trying to... If I get into the concentration mode, I don't notice where my work is on camera. Which is fine for me, but not very helpful for anyone watching, so I do apologise. Go. Now if you find that you're really struggling doing that last decrease, you can just skip it. Just keep going until you're sort of happy with the whole, and you are happy with how many decreases you've done. Sorry, I know I'm pulling that off. I'm struggling to get my hook through that loop now. There we go. So this is probably going to be my last one because I'm starting to struggle. So sort of just keep going until you really can't pick up the loops anymore. So that's it. I'm done with that. So what I'm going to do, rather than, I'm not going to cut off the yarn just yet. I'm just going to put my hook through a stitch. I'm going to grab the yarn, pull it through. I'm not going to do a finishing crochet stitch. I'm going to do a slip stitch. So I'm not going to grab the yarn like I would normally. I'm just going to grab that first loop that I pulled up through the stitch, just pull that through that back loop on the hook. So that's a slip stitch. Alright, now I'm going to cut the yarn. What I've done with my scissors. And pull the hook out. We don't need that anymore. I'm just going to cut my yarn with a little bit, enough that I can get through a needle. So a slight tail, doesn't have to be too long though. Just going to pull the yarn through that loop, tighten that up, and get one of my needles. The tail through the needle. So now I'm just going to go back around that hole. I'm going to pick up the front loop. Yeah, so we're just going to zoom in on this to make it a bit easier to see. There we go. So I'm just going to get my needle through the front loop of each stitch. My needle caught through a thread, I think. Bear with me. Sometimes you need to be Mr. Muscle to get the needle through the yarn. There we go. And I'm just going to go round to every stitch and just pick up that front or top loop. one more. Oh no, I've missed one. So 2 more. This one. Right, now we're just going to pull that nice and tight. So that's going to close off that hole. So that's now going to look quite similar to the bottom, which was the starting. That just closes that hole, stops any stuffing from escaping, and then it is slightly raised. I mean, it's not going to matter too much because it's going to go under the hat, but if you want to have it sort of smooth like you have at the starting, just I can do one quick loop under. Just pick a random point to hook your needle through. It doesn't matter where it is. I'm just going to do a quick tie off. What am I hooked on? Pull the yarn through. Don't pull it all the way through. Keep a little bit of a loop, and then just hook your needle back through that to do your tie off. Make that nice and secure. And then we're just going to send our needle through the center of the hole, just through the stuffing and out to the side. Anywhere, it doesn't matter where it comes out. I'm just going to pull that through. Now you may struggle to get the needle through with the stuffing, so this can be a bit of a tricky thing. I generally use pliers, which makes me feel like I'm doing some sort of construction thing rather than creating crochet, but it works. If you haven't packed your stuffing up too much, you may find this a bit easier. Because I stuff my toys quite heavily, I do have a tough time of this sometimes. And it's not because the needle gets stuck in the stuffing, it's because the thread gets stuck in the stuffing.
Do you want a hand?
Yeah, I might need a hand on this one. Get the husband muscle in. There we go. Ha ha ha. See, I knew it could be done. It's just a pain in the ass. Thank you. So just pull that down at a random point, and that makes that close, pulls it into the toy a bit and makes it nice and flat. But again, it is going to go in a hat, so we're not really going to see it. So now we've pulled it through, just grab our scissors, pull ever so slightly tighter than it needs to be, cut that off, and that will then disappear back into the toy. So you won't see any of the strands. So that's the body of the snowman. You can see the stuffing once. If you've had to pull quite firmly to try and get the needle through, you may find that you've, like I had, deformed it slightly, but you can just push and move the stuffing round back into its position. So that's it. We've got the body of the snowman ready to be dressed up and have his nose and face put on him next time. But that's where we're going to end today, and we'll pick up part 3 next week. We'll start off with the hat, and I'll talk you through how you can measure out what sort of length you want for the scarf. The scarf is just a very simple single crochet back and forth, but I will run through that on stream next time. Right, thank you very much everyone. Don't forget to follow. Don't forget to check me out on Instagram. If there is anything you want to order, as I said, the Big Boy Snowman in the fluffy, not in this sparkly, They are available to order up until the end of November. I will be shipping out any of my orders of the snowman at the end of November. I won't be shipping them out earlier, just because I want to make sure that anyone that does order a big boy snowman, that I get them all shipped out at the same time, so I'm not missing any orders. Obviously this is a one-man band, so I just want to make sure I'm not forgetting anyone.
Say yourself short, there's a woman in it too.
One man thank you. One woman band then. So they're £15 purchase. You can message me on Instagram or on Twitch to order them. I will be making hanging decorations of the snowman in this sparkly yarn, but they'll be quite a bit smaller. They'll be up for sale on my Etsy mid-November. They'll be £5 each. But I also work on commissions, so if there's anything that you want, any particular toys, any memory blankets or anything like that, if you send me a message or an email, my email address is contact@mamabearable.co.uk. We'll work out materials, colours, costing, and all that jazz to suit your needs. Any purchases do require a 50% non-refundable deposit up front, and the balance is payable on shipping. But I do ship to anywhere within the UK and the EU, so if there's anything that you think I can make for you, all things are possible through craft, and if you can dream it, I can make it. Isn't that right? Little doggo cam, family cam right at the end. Alright, most of the family. We are missing our daughter, but she's at her grandparents tonight. Alrighty, thank you very much everyone. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I will see you later. Bye bye.